Imagine this. You're a 62-year-old widow, sitting in the front row of your husband's funeral. The priest speaks of eternal peace. Mourners sniffle quietly behind you. You clutch the folded tissue in your hand, ready to say goodbye to the man you've loved for nearly 4 decades. And then your phone buzzes. You glance down. One new message. And the words staring back at you change everything. You think he died of natural causes? Think again. You're next. From that moment, grief became terror. A funeral became the opening scene of a nightmare. And before long, the truth would rip through an entire family, leaving a trail of lies, betrayal, and blood. Today, we dive into the chilling story of Margaret Patel, the widow who received a message at her husband's funeral. And then the worst happened. This is not just a story about death. It's a story about what lingers after, about secrets buried deeper than a coffin, and about how one woman's mourning turned into a fight for her life. Before we dive into this mind-blowing story, make sure you like the video, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss stories that pull you in, flip your brain inside out, and leave you questioning everything. Let's go back to where it all began. Margaret Patel had lived most of her 62 years quietly. Born in Edison, New Jersey, the eldest daughter of Indian immigrants, she was known for her warm smile and her unwavering presence at church potlucks. To neighbors, she was dependable. To friends, trustworthy. To her family, she was the glue that held everyone together. Her husband, Dr. Anil Patel, was 15 years older. A physician respected in their community, he had run a modest clinic for decades. Patients spoke of him with gratitude. How he treated those who couldn't pay. How he worked long nights. How he never turned anyone away. To the outside world, theirs was a picture-perfect marriage. But those closest knew a different truth. Dr. Patel was strict, distant, the kind of man who demanded silence at dinner, who locked his office door even at home, who carried secrets like other men carried wallets. Margaret endured. For nearly 40 years, she built her life around him. Until one Thursday morning in late October, when he collapsed in his study. The coroner called it cardiac arrest. Natural. Expected at his age. Case closed. At least that's what everyone believed. Until the funeral. The rain fell in sheets that morning, washing over the chapel roof. Inside, St. Augustine's smelled of roses and candle wax. Mourners filled the pews, their umbrellas dripping onto the floor. Margaret sat at the very front, dressed in a plain black sari, her hands clenched in her lap. The casket gleamed under the altar lights. The priest spoke. Anil Patel lived a life of service. May his soul find peace in the arms of eternity. But peace was the last thing waiting for Margaret. Her phone buzzed inside her purse. Out of habit, she slipped it out, shielding the screen with her shawl. One new message. No name, just words. You think he died of natural causes? Think again. You're next. Her throat tightened. She nearly dropped the phone. Around her, the choir sang softly, oblivious. Margaret's mind raced. Who would send such a thing? A cruel prank? A mistake? But the pit in her stomach told her otherwise. By the time the service ended, she was shaking. Relatives hugged her. Friends pressed tissues into her hand. But she couldn't hear their words. She couldn't stop staring at her phone. And then it buzzed again. Second message. Meet me at his clinic tonight. Alone. If you want the truth. Margaret slipped the phone back into her purse. And she told no one. That night, after the last guest left her house, Margaret drove through the rain. The wipers squeaked across the windshield. The empty clinic parking lot loomed ahead. She unlocked the door with trembling hands. The fluorescent lights flickered to life. On her husband's desk sat a single manila envelope. Her name scrawled across it. Inside, photographs. Grainy. Her husband entering a motel with a young woman. Receipts for jewelry. Bank withdrawals in the thousands. At the bottom, one final note. He wasn't who you thought he was. And now his enemies are yours. Margaret staggered backward. The man she had loved, her Anil, had been living a double life. And then, movement. A shadow slid past the frosted glass. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heart-pounding, Margaret bolted. She dropped half the photos on the floor as she ran. She barely locked the car before peeling out of the lot. She didn't sleep that night. She didn't tell a soul. But the messages didn't stop. It was late evening when Margaret returned from the grocery store. Her front door was ajar. Papers scattered across the floor. Her late husband's office had been torn apart. Desk drawers emptied. Filing cabinets overturned. On the wall, written in red lipstick, "Where is it?" Margaret screamed. She stumbled back into the yard, shaking, until neighbors called the police. Detective Ortiz arrived within minutes. He studied the scene. No fingerprints. No forced entry. This wasn't kids, he said. They were looking for something. But what? The next day, Ortiz called Margaret into the station. He shut the door and lowered his voice. "Mrs. Patel, there's something you need to know." Dr. Patel, he explained, had been under quiet federal investigation. Not for malpractice, but for prescription fraud. He had allegedly been funneling opioids through fake patients, earning money on the side. And the young woman in the photos? Not just a mistress. She was working with investigators. Margaret's knees buckled. The man she thought she knew had been entangled in crime. Ortiz's warning was grim. Someone out there thinks you know where the money went. That puts you in danger. Margaret tried to stay with her niece, Priya. Together, they double-checked locks, pulled curtains tight, prayed before bed. But the messages followed. Running won't save you. One night, as Priya drove Margaret home, headlights flared in the rearview mirror. A black SUV roared up behind them. Before they could react, it slammed into their car. The world spun. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. When Margaret opened her eyes, the car was upside down in a ditch. Priya was gone. Detective Ortiz stood at her hospital bed days later. His jaw was tight. This isn't random anymore. Someone wants you silenced. Margaret sobbed into her hands. She had lost her niece, her only real comfort. The investigation widened. Was it one of Dr. Patel's patients? Angry addicts cut off from prescriptions? Or the young informant, furious after being abandoned? Or maybe a rival dealer cleaning up loose ends? The more Ortiz dug, the darker it became. And one possibility chilled him most. What if Dr. Patel hadn't died of natural causes at all? What if the heart attack was staged? Margaret withdrew completely. She barely ate. She barely spoke. She lived in constant dread. Then one night, she found an envelope under her door. Inside, a small USB stick. She played it on her laptop. A recording. Her husband's voice.
Muffled, urgent.
If you're hearing this, I'm already dead. They're going to come for you too. Don't trust anyone. Margaret collapsed onto the floor. Her world spun. Nothing made sense anymore. Weeks later, Ortiz called her in. They had finally traced the funeral text. Not to criminals. Not to strangers. But to her own stepson, Rahul Patel. Confronted, Rahul broke down. He admitted he had known about his father's dealings for years. When Dr. Patel overdosed on his own pills, Rahul panicked. He feared his father's enemies would come for him. "I sent the texts to scare her," he confessed. "To keep her from digging. I didn't mean for it to go this far." But the SUV crash, the break-in, the lipstick message, those were real. Enemies really were circling. Margaret had become collateral in her husband's dangerous world. Margaret never returned to her old life. She sold the house. She moved far away. She never remarried. The official cause of death remained cardiac arrest. But Margaret knew better. Every night she still dreamed of that chapel. The roses, the candles, the vibration of her phone, and those 8 words that split her life in two. You think he died of natural causes? Think again. You're next. What do you think? Was Margaret a victim of her husband's dark secrets? Or of her own family's betrayal? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more haunting stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and share this with someone who loves true crime. Until next time, stay safe.